CELPIP speaking is the hardest module among all 4 modules, and this is not a statement that I just made up. We did a poll on our YouTube channel. If you haven't seen our YouTube channel, please do. It is HZad Education Coaching Central. Lots of great videos there. Now, in this poll we asked which module is the hardest, and everybody said it's speaking, followed by reading, then writing, and listening was the easiest. So just so you know, if you are having those struggles, you're similar to other candidates. However, after this video, after this lecture, you will be much more relaxed because we're going to go over all types of speaking questions. So it's going to be very useful if you're a first-time test taker. But if you have failed a few times, we will show you the structure, the words and phrasing, advanced templates, advanced tips and tricks, everything with practical usage. We have sample answers here too, and we'll see how we're going to apply all these words and structure and phrasing in those answers. So first of all, let's get started with the first question. Talk about one of your best friends. Let me also talk a little bit about the exam scenario. So you go in there, you're sitting down, you're doing your listening. That's the first one. Then you do your reading, then writing, and then speaking. This is the last part. And as you may know, you can forward the modules. If you're done listening early, reading early, even if you have remaining time, you decide to forward or go next, you can do speaking faster than others. So you might be, if you're a genius, you might be at speaking much faster than others. If you are that person, you will be speaking before anybody else. And that's normal if you're the first person to speak. Not a big deal. However, I have noted most people who take more time in the exam or use up all their time and they're the last ones to finish, they usually have the best results. So don't rush it, take your time. Okay, so while you're here at the exam, a very important tip that has, according to my students, saved a lot of them from the surprise of the exam is there are going to be other people talking. You might be the third, fourth, or maybe the last person who starts their speaking. And while others are talking, you will have the challenge of speaking. There are sometimes really good noise cancellation headphones and sometimes they're not. You want to assume the worst and assume that other people will be talking and you will be highly distracted. So when this happens, you should not be in an element of surprise. At home, when you're speaking, you should practice with something turned on in the background. So you should have some news item playing. I don't recommend music. I recommend news or podcasts playing. The reason is if you have that voice, just talking, people talking, you will be accustomed to speaking while others are talking. You will need to learn how to ignore all the other voices while you're speaking. And that can be a challenge for many. For some, they don't care, right? So try to practice at home with that. Trust me, you'll be very happy I gave you the suggestion in the exam. So when you start, you want to speak in the microphone. There is no examiner, just so you guys know, if you're coming from IELTS. You're talking into the computer using that mic. Bring that mic closer, as close as possible. Just make sure it's not touching your lips because then there will be the sound of you hitting your lips with the mic. But it should be close so you're audible. And speaking of audible, you should be speaking at a normal pace. In terms of pace, the speed should be normal, not too fast, not too slow. At the same time, you shouldn't speak too loud. If you do, you're going to bother other candidates. And once you do that, the invigilator is going to come maybe even in between your speaking task and stop you or warn you, and that will derail your momentum, so don't even let that happen. You should speak not too slow because you want the microphone to hear it, so steady pace and steady volume. Now, when you're speaking, breathing techniques are very important. We'll talk about those. We'll talk about all those tips and tricks, breathing and warming up and so on. So all of that is coming up later. But this is the initial expectation you can expect for the setting you will be in. Now, let's get into the first question that you will see on your screen. Talk about one of your best friends. Here's the thing. There are no marks for this question. This question is just a practice warm-up question. I highly recommend you say something here. Your answer here is not marked at all. So you can say a bunch of gibberish, it's okay. But at this point, you will be done with 3 other modules: listening, reading, and writing. You'll be tired, your tongue will be tired, and there is no warm-up. If you don't speak here, you just go to the next one and start speaking here. Your warm-up will be your actual first question. So it should be just the practice question. That is the very reason they give you that, because they know that you would need a little warm-up. And don't be overconfident. The best public speakers, the top comedians, everybody does this, okay? Everybody uses some warm-up time. So you might be better than them, but most likely you are not there, right? So if they're doing it, learn from the best and warm up. So here you want to speak 60 seconds or as much as you can. Just try to work on it as if it was the perfect question, because you will try to structure your sentences. You will try to finish on time, and you want to experience this, get the nervousness done in the first question where you can make mistakes because you are not marked. Now, by the time you go to your actual first question, which is now going to be marked, you are more confident and you are ready. So let's get started. The first question says, your colleague is a shy public speaker, but has been asked to deliver a speech in the company's annual event. Advise him or her how to overcome his or her stage fright. This kind of question is always about advice. So it's very easy for us to create a template and use some words that can always fit suggestions. It's always suggestions, it's nothing else. And you can see here, there's a preparation time and a speaking time, which in the exam sometimes can be called as the recording time. Same thing like speaking time. So in the preparation time of 30 seconds, as soon as you get the question, the preparation time starts, which means you are reading and the time is running out at the same time. So it sometimes takes 15 seconds, just to read the question. And then you're left with 15 seconds to prepare. Can you really come up with points in 15 seconds? Yes and no. And here's the thing. You might come up with 3 points, but you might remember just one when you actually start speaking. It's very easy to forget. You do get a pen and paper to write things down. You can jot down any points that you brainstorm, but I would highly recommend you don't. I have seen time after time people who take notes before speaking. They usually never even look at those notes, because when you're speaking, your focus should be being natural, being fluent, and focusing on the subject. If you're looking at your notes, it can cause more damage than have any pro. So avoid that. And again, if you can't think of any point in 15 seconds, that's also a mistake. It's a problem. You should be able to at least think of one. For all questions, you should aim to think of 1 point. Start with that 1 point. That's going to give you that good start, and everything else you want to think of them while speaking. Now, people say, how can I do that? And this is what I tell them. If you were giving advice to your actual friend who is going to deliver a speech in real life, do you have preparation time? You don't even have 15 seconds. Like, you have to give advice right there and then. And that's where you would realize, if you start practicing thinking you're actually talking to a real person, you're being natural, you assume that this is your friend Bob or Sarah who you're talking to, you would come up with points left and right without even thinking, okay? You have to think of it in a natural way, not think of it as if it were an exam. That's where you will have the mental block. But there are strategies. For example, there are some words and phrases you could use, like, what's more, on top of that, my second point is that, and this helps you transition to the next point. And while you're saying these words and phrases, what you're doing is thinking. So you will think about what you have to say next in these brief seconds, and that's good enough usually. So I'll show you these words and phrases. We have them per question. That'll help you get the structure. The other thing is you want to practice as much as possible. That helps you as well with coming up with points. Lastly, you might remember this list from the previous lesson, which was in writing. These are the points you can use to refer to any question and use them to come up with points. For example, I just need 3 points for that question. So how to recommend this friend to not be shy? I could say something about politics. Political people are the best liars and they deliver the best speeches because of that. So check out some of their videos. Environmental doesn't really fit here. Educational, maybe you can talk about how she can work on educating herself using a course online that teaches public speaking. Something about culture, medication, not really, but social. I could tell her, hey, you are very social naturally. Just try to be that person on stage instead of thinking it's something, some task that is insurmountable for you. Just assume you're speaking to your friends because you are very good socially. You're an extrovert. And just like that, with this list, I can come up with 3 points. And that's all I need. You don't need too many points. So using this list also is very useful. Okay, so I keep saying 3 points, 3 points. That's because this question is 90 seconds. How you want to structure this is you want to have 60 seconds for your 3 points, 10 seconds for your introduction, 10 seconds for your conclusion. Total time is 80 seconds. You always want to leave 5 to 10 seconds. Now, about this leaving 5 to 10 seconds, the reason we leave this time is because 95% of the times, people are unable to finish the answer with the conclusion within the given time. And if you don't finish the conclusion, you lose marks if you don't have a concluding sentence. You also lose marks if you are mid-sentence and the recording stops. So always leaving that buffer is good. Now, if you actually just leave 5 seconds at the end without saying anything, you will not lose any marks. That bit of pause is perfect, no problem at all. If you spend more than 5 seconds, if you have like 10 seconds, 11, 12 seconds of just dead pause at the end, it might be seen by the examiner as a purposeful attempt from your end to not speak, just so you don't record any mistakes, and you may lose marks. So don't leave more than 5 seconds at the end, but just having that room of 5 to 10 seconds, that buffer helps you and helps you prepare better. Because at the end, you can say a bunch of things. If you have too much time left, you could say here, let me know your thoughts. I'm really curious to see how my advice turns out. Okay, so that will help you finish up those final seconds. But always leave that buffer, because most likely you won't even get the chance to say some final words. You'll be rushing at the end. Okay, now how do we speak? Let's have a look at the actual template. Now this is the intro. We'll go with that. And this one is also part of the intro. This is the conclusion. The 3 points you have are right here, and this is where most of the content will be. Now, the 3 points are going to take 60 seconds, which means the first point gets 20 seconds for the next point, and 20 seconds for the last point. You want to give each point the same amount of time. That just helps with task response, gives you a more complete answer. So we'll see how we can organize that. But first, let's have a look at the intros and conclusions. These are standard. You can use them, copy paste them in speaking every time you get this question. But the 3 points here, those are the ones you would have to come up with using the connectors I have given you, because they will always have a different situation and you don't want to memorize or over memorize too much. If you do, your answer will look super formulated. So I could have given you 100 situations: shy public speaker, needs cooking, needs money, and given you a template on all of that, and that will damage a lot. So the actual answer, the core answer, you need to come up with the answer and the words based on the situation. But what you can use are multiple words and phrases which are highly advanced, unique, and they are low frequency sentences, verbs, and phrases, which will help you secure a good mark, an excellent starting impression, and an excellent ending impression. Let's have a look. So it says, "Hi Maria, how have you been?" That's going to be your start, and I would just go with Maria or Bob, names that I don't have to think about in the exam. "It feels like ages since we last caught up." Advanced phrasing, unique. It's not simple like "how are you?" So you could use this start, or there's another option, and in these templates you have multiple options to choose from. Do the ones that are natural to you and that come off your tongue smoothly. You can also say, "Hi Maria, how have you been? It's been far too long since we last spoke." Now this is also unique phrasing, and all of this is way more advanced than just saying "how are you?" Next, you want to get to the topic now, because you are going to suggest something, so let's build on to that after you have done your greeting. All these things, these words and phrases, tackle the marking scheme again. You have to be tone appropriate, so if you just say, "Hey Maria, I got to advise you on this," Without greeting, you lose marks. So we got the greeting in. Now let's get to the point. I've come to know about the challenges you're recently facing. If you want, you could actually talk about the real challenge here. You could say, I've come to know about the public speaking challenges you have been facing. Currently, adverb gives you good marks. Now, the other version that you can use, if you want to use something else that is more smooth, you can say, I heard about the difficulties you're currently facing. Okay, currently, again, adverb, nice phrasing here. And then you want to add this part and wanted to share some insights based on my own experiences. So you see here, we don't have an I wanted to. And I could also make it wanna, and here, and I wanna share some insights. But in this case, it's wanted to because you're trying to be polite, and it's also in the past tense. But the idea here is to be tone appropriate, to be casual, to be natural. These are all natural wordings. If I would have said, I hereby give you some advice. Firstly, people do that, okay? You will lose marks if you do that. Similarly, you see the conclusion, we'll get to that, but we don't ever use words like, I'm looking forward to talking to you. To a friend, the moment you do that in the informal context, you lose marks. So if you said, I'm looking forward to talking to you, you're gonna lose marks. It should be tone appropriate. So here we have something that you can use. I truly hope you take these suggestions into account for your benefit. Very friendly, very interpersonal. There's truly hope instead of I hope. So again, from our vocab lesson, you know we need to place adverbs and adjectives. The other version of this one is I sincerely hope you find these recommendations helpful. So once again, we have sincerely, a good adverb there. Adjectives too, wherever you can. Now, you see these ones. This is where you have the ability to save time, add time, or decrease time. The last two sentences are, can't wait to hear back from you. Take care. Or you can even add talk to you soon. So all of this depends. Let's say you have no time left at all. Just say take care. Okay, now this is not ideal. It's too short, too quick. But if you really have 1 second left, that's what you do. If you have 3 to 4 seconds left, talk to you soon, take care. That's why talk to you soon is in brackets. It's good to use, but you don't have to if you don't have time. And this one also I've mentioned here is optional. Again, depends on how much time you have left. Can't wait to hear back from you. Now ideally, you should have time left for all three. You should say, can't wait to hear back from you. Talk to you soon. Take care. Also, wherever you see these exclamation marks, make sure it's expressive. Make sure you have emphasis. If you just say, can't wait to hear back from you, and you really think you want to hear back from her, no, it should be natural, and exclamation marks show that exaggerated feeling. So guys, volume fluctuations are very important. Make sure you emphasize the content, especially things like exclamation marks and adjectives. For example, an adjective, let's find one here. Okay, hope you find these recommendations helpful. This one is towards the end of the sentence, so the tone is going to be lower. Let's say we're in the middle of a sentence and I tell her, this advice will be extremely helpful for you. So extremely helpful. That's where you raise your volume, emphasize a little bit more, speak a little slower. So make sure you have those natural touches in all your answers. Okay, so you got a very good introduction, very good conclusion. And now we're going to look at the 3 points we could say here. The first point, you want to start with words like to begin with or first and foremost. Quick question for you guys, which one is better here? Well, in this context, I would go with first and foremost because it is more informal. To begin with can be used, it's semi-formal, but it's more for this person who is a close friend to me. I'm just going to say first and foremost. Then I'm going to give my 20-second description, and we have a sample answer. I'll show you that in a sec. The next point, I could either say furthermore or on top of that, whatever works for me. The last point, you would say in addition or additionally. So these are more advanced versions of you simply saying firstly, secondly, thirdly. Instead of those, you use advanced connectors. Now let's get into the fun part. How do we actually use it in these questions? So this was the question we were looking at, being a shy public speaker. This is the template. Everything that you see here in bold is the template. So you don't have to go back and forth. Everything in bold is the template. Everything that is not in bold are the words that we are adding based on the context and the topic given. So you'll see how easy it is to plug and play. For example, I'm going to start with, "Hi Maria." And I would just pick a name, Maria, Bob, that I would always use. Don't think about the name in the exam. Just make that quick, okay? "How have you been? It feels like ages since we last caught up. I heard about the challenges you're facing with public speaking." So you mentioned the topic here. This is the question. And now you show the examiner that you understand the topic. And wanted to share some insights based on my own experiences. Perfect start and a perfect lead in to your next point. And you'll see how these templates give you such a good flow. Greeting, addressing the problem, and here are my solutions, and then a good wrap up at the end. So first and foremost, again, that's what we're choosing here. Practice is key. Now remember, you want to use a combination of simple and complex sentences, and that's what we have done throughout these answers here in speaking and in writing. And this was the lesson taught to you in the vocabulary section. You want to use a combination. So something like this is pretty brilliant. You do a simple short sentence at the start, and then you elaborate it. And also the topic sentences usually of paragraphs, or when you start a point, need to give the idea of the whole paragraph. So if I just see this highlighted part, I know that the entire paragraph is going to be about practice, which is really good. And then we just expand on it. It's also good for your vocabulary because of the simple and complex sentence mixture. Rehearse your speech multiple times, either in front of a mirror or with a trusted friend. Trust me, this will help you gain confidence and refine your delivery. Look at this little touch, trust me. And then something like this, I know this has been an issue for you. These show familiarity with the person you're talking to. So this shows that we know the person. And you want to show realism as much as possible in your CELPIP writing and speaking. Furthermore, focus on your breathing. Furthermore is the template. Deep breaths before and during your speech can calm your nerves significantly, which I know has been an issue for you. You will see every point that we mention, we give reasoning. This is one crucial aspect of task response. People usually don't share the reason why. I mean, a lot of people would say, hey, focus on breathing. It's really useful. You will thank me later. But why or how should I breathe? Those things need to be explained and expanded on, which this answer is doing beautifully. Additionally, final point, you gotta visualize success in formal tone, which is really appropriate for this answer. It's mostly informal, part one speaking. If it is formal, make sure you adjust it accordingly. Imagine yourself confidently. Now you see the tone here. Imagine yourself when you visualize this. This is more of a future scenario. The phrasing here is different. It's more like painting a picture in future. And why that is good is because it highlights a different tone. And you got to keep moving your tone to give yourself that broad range of sentences and expressions. So you use a combination of active and passive voice, or things like these where you use phrases about future. The first two ideas were more on the present tense, and this is more about the future. So this really helps in your range. Imagine yourself confidently delivering the speech and receiving positive feedback. When you visualize, you pretty much practice being on stage. And by the time you actually show up on the podium, it's a familiar feeling instead of something that catches you by surprise. Now you're going to do your final comment from the template. I sincerely hope you find these recommendations helpful. Can't wait to hear back from you. Take care. Okay, guys, make sure it's really natural, it's expressive, and make sure when you do the points in between your templates, they're elaborated, they have the why and how. You would also see the template does about, I would say, 25 to 30% of the work for you, but it also does the most important work. It gives you the structure, gives you the vocabulary. It does such a good job with the vocabulary that you don't have to worry about too much of the vocab concepts in the actual answer, which is same for writing and other speaking tasks here. But make sure to always focus on, obviously, the essentials, grammar, vocabulary, phrasing, and good quality points. That's it. This also helps you manage time effectively, which is why templates and these guidelines are just the best things you can use in the exam. Now we'll move to question number 2.